Teachers are critical to promoting education and a brighter future. They provide the building blocks of knowledge for the coming generations. They create the foundation of our success. They guide the path for our future, molding and enriching our minds. Teachers spend 7 hours or more each day with their students, and they directly influence hundreds, if not thousands, of people throughout their lifetime. Yet, for its caliber, teaching is one of the lowest paying occupations in America today. A position of such great responsibility deserves more care and respect from our government. More emphasis needs to be placed on the hiring, training, and payment of our teachers because they are very important and influential. Without help, prioritization, and motivation for our teachers, our future is in jeopardy.
Teachers play a crucial role in our society because they directly influence and educate the future generations of workers. In order for those adults to perform well, their teachers had to have taught them well when they were young. Therefore, it is essential that only the most qualified and adequate teachers should be hired. The requirements, however, to become a teacher in our country
I've been
are,
walking
at this
in the
moment,
same
insufficient.
way as I did.
Well, of course, a teacher is required to get a bachelor's. I think most teachers go on to get their master's now because it always helps to have a backup, especially in the field of education.
Well, there's all kinds of ways to become certified as a teacher. You know, when I was in undergrad school, you had to have 24 hours in each of your teaching fields we were recommended to get 2 teaching fields. Mine are biology and history, or were biology and history. So you had to have 24 hours in your undergrad in each subject. Today, some schools require you to major in the subject that you're going to teach. For instance, if you're going to teach high school mathematics, you have to major in mathematics at Texas A&M, and then you can get a teaching certificate also. The problem with that becomes that many people who've majored in mathematics will want to go find a job after 4 years doing something in mathematics because there's a good possibility they can, get a high-paying job.
That's a hard question, but I think that the process is pretty well in place, but there are some things that have a problem with it, that I have a problem with personally. And one of those is in science, the area which I teach. You can get certified to teach science, and all the people, the principals and the superintendents want you to teach science, but the certificates they have that you come up with is called composite science. And which, if you get that certificate, then that technically allows you to be, quote, certified to teach any science. Now, heaven forbid, if I personally don't have that certificate, and I personally am against that certificate, because I think that if you're going to teach a class, you should have a degree in that subject that you're going to teach.
Unlike other professions, such as doctors or lawyers, that require intense schooling to ensure competence and readiness, the profession of teaching is not nearly as selective. Because teacher training is so basic, oftentimes, teachers must adjust to the school's needs and teach a subject that they are not necessarily specialized in. Thus, the quality of teaching suffers as teachers are merely placed in classrooms to cover a topic rather than to offer their true expertise.
Maybe when they're giving teacher interviews, kind of up the standards so that they're not just hiring teachers just to have another class or something, but they actually have a good
hired at best of the best.
I think the training needs to happen with students, in the classroom, more student teachers, more maybe a first-year teacher should maybe co-teach with a more experienced teacher, because you really, whatever you learn in the classroom doesn't really apply until you get with real students.
If teacher training becomes more rigorous, then the amount of people who enter the field will shrink. This loss must be offset by a boost in the incentive to become a teacher. The easiest way to motivate more people to become teachers is by raising the salary.
I think teachers should be paid more because if teachers aren't paid enough, then they tend to not care about the quality of their teaching, which means that the education level drops and it affects students and their future.
I think that teachers get paid very little for what they do because they work really hard and they have a college education, and it's really sad that garbage men get probably paid about the exact same amount as teachers, and I think teachers definitely get underpaid for what they do.
Well, I don't think we pay teachers enough because Teachers, they're so important to kids growing up. My history teacher, she was one of the only adults who came to one of my shows. She actually showed me that she cared about not only how I did academically, but all about my life and about me as a person. And other people in my life didn't really do that. So teachers are really important. We need to give them more credit.
I do believe that if the salaries in general were higher for teachers, that it would be a more competitive selection process for teachers. And anytime there's a deeper pool of applicants and a more, I guess, qualified group of applicants, I think you're going to get better results on the hiring end. So just like with everything else, as the pay scale goes up with it, you're going to have more people clamoring to get into those jobs, and the more people that are clamoring to get into those jobs, the more likely you are to have qualified applicants.
I think teachers aren't paid enough. Teachers are to gardeners as students are to plants. Teachers provide students with the resources and the help for us to become adults, mature, and beautiful flowers.
Motivating teachers through increased wages will attract the interest of many highly capable graduates. So now the pool of applicants is not only more qualified but also larger and varied. After they enter the field, teachers need motivation to work harder as they mature in their careers so they will not become passive and unenergetic about their jobs. One proposal suggests that teachers should be paid based on student performance in order to reward effective teaching.
I think probably not, because it would be difficult, I think, to get teachers to work in lower income or at lower performing schools where we actually need better teachers. But maybe, there's been talk about assessing the children at the beginning of the year and assessing the children at the end of the year and maybe gauging their improvement.
I can tell you that I have some experience with an incentive-based grant program where teachers received financial incentives for student test scores on tax and so forth. And I can tell you that the results on that were pretty positive on what the teachers received and what their pass rates on tax moved to. I will say that most studies that are done about incentive-based programs for teachers usually point to the fact that it is not an effective way to pay teachers.
With the advent of the whole budget cuts and how teachers are getting laid off because they don't have tenure at the school, I believe that it's more important that the teacher's a good teacher, because in education, as students, we really need good teachers that can teach us instead of just teachers that have been around here for a long time, because I personally have been through a lot of teachers who've been here for like 20 years, but they have not really contributed to my education as much as I wanted them to. So I believe that teachers their salaries should be based on their merits, but there should be a fair way to determine the teacher's merits, not just based on their test scores and such, because some students do indeed slack off and it's their own personal problem. But they should definitely not be paid based on their tenure or how many years they've been teaching.
Well, I think they should be paid based on experience and not based on what students think of them, because now you have teachers that are going to be teaching to the students and trying to make really close friends so they can improve their grade and make it easier for the students to like them, and then it becomes a popularity contest, and I think that's going to affect the integrity of the profession.
Definitely the year's experience needs to be taken into consideration, but obviously if the experience is there and the students aren't doing anything and the teacher's not preparing the students, then that's not a good thing either. So I think it should be kind of a combination thing.
I think experience is very valuable. So yes, I think the number of years that a teacher is actually teaching has a whole lot to do with the quality of teaching that she does. I'm certainly not the teacher I was when I first started teaching. The experience I've gained over the years is quite a valuable thing to me, and I think it pays off with my students.
I don't know, degrees, years experience. I'm not quite sure if performance testing is a good idea or if it would even work. I don't really like the current evaluation system. I think it's too difficult for administrators, you know, to give you an evaluation, an objective evaluation, and that be tied to your pay. And in the state of Texas, we used to do that about 20 years ago. And if you got a good evaluation, you would get a bonus. But, you know, again, you know, sometimes administrators don't really know what we do in the classroom, and it's hard for them to judge.
Determining wages through a merit-based system seems idealistic, but unfortunately, teacher pay comes down to more than just rewarding the best teachers. Still, society must seek ways to cherish its outstanding teachers. Students everywhere are already demanding better treatment for their underappreciated teachers. In a recent protest on April 20th, 2011, led near Clements High School in Fort Bend ISD, hundreds of students marched for their education. They protested for fewer budget cuts and increased protection for their teachers that teach excellently but are being moved because of their lack of experience.
Because I actually have a teacher that's in danger of losing her job, so, you know, I'm very passionate about that.
The reason that they have for doing these budget cuts to our school system is because they have to cut something in order to balance the budget. But the idea that you're going to cut education to balance the budget is contradictory, because if you remove the skilled workers that we're going to get from education for the future, within, because we're in high school less than 10 years, you're already going to have a lower standard of education, lower wages because there aren't as many skilled workers. There's a correlation between education and how much you earn. The fact that they would focus on this, even up to our presidency, they expressly said that under no circumstance would they cut education in order to balance the budget. But the state of Texas has decided that they're still going to go ahead with it.
We are protesting for those teachers that are the really good teachers at Clements that are getting cut because of budget spending, and really education is extremely important. It's not something that you can just cut. So we're here to protect those teachers who are really beneficial to our lives, but don't have a job right now. We are.
What do we want it? Now! What do we want?
Education!
When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Education! When do we want it?
We're here to show our support for the awareness of the education cut, because we feel that the Texas legislature is taking unfortunate cuts to education. Well, it should be a priority.
What do we want? Left behind! No, teacher! Left behind!
Yes, it's true that high school students are often underestimated. And yes, most of the time teenagers are not taken seriously. But by working together, we can at least make an impact. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Change doesn't happen overnight, but every little contribution counts. More emphasis needs to be placed on our educational system and the role of teaching, because teachers shape our future. Although we constantly complain about our teachers, in the end,